You know that feeling? Where you're trying to do the jobs of like 10 different people every single day.
Oh, definitely.
You're managing your own email flood, booking your own travel, researching every little purchase, trying to stay focused.
It feels completely overwhelming sometimes.
It really does. And, if that sounds familiar, you're absolutely not alone. It's pretty much the baseline for modern life, isn't it? This constantly connected, slightly frantic reality.
Yeah, and it's important to say right up front, this isn't some kind of personal failing. It's not about lack of willpower.
Right.
It's really more about the systems we're using, or maybe the systems that are failing us. Think back just, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago.
Yep.
We relied on people who were essentially information specialists, right?
Like travel agents.
Exactly. Travel agents, knowledgeable sales clerks if you needed something specific, typists, secretaries for complex letters.
Yeah, that whole support structure.
That whole structure. And the information age didn't just, make that work disappear. It just shifted it
Onto us.
onto every single one of us. All that mental labor got offloaded.
So now we're the manager, the scheduler, the researcher, the typist. All at once.
While also trying to do our actual jobs.
And live our lives. Families, hobbies, personal goals. It's exhausting before you even really start the day.
It really is. So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're exploring the organized mind.
Okay.
We're digging into the science, cognitive, neuroscience, psychology to figure out how we can use, better internal discipline, sure, but also much better external system.
To fight back against this information overload.
Exactly. To increase focus, make better decisions, just function more effectively.
And the sources we're looking at are pretty broad, right? Everything from how attention works at a neural level to like really complex risk assessment stuff.
Yeah, it's quite comprehensive. Neural networks, filing systems, decision theory, the works.
Okay, so the goal here is basically a shortcut, a way to get well informed on how to tame this chaos without reading, dozens of books.
That's the plan, a clear path through the noise.
All right, let's unpack this. Where do we start? Maybe with the brain itself, the architecture of the problem.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect place. To find solutions, we first have to appreciate the sheer power and complexity of the tool we're working with, our brain.
Okay.
And there are two really key properties driving this feeling of overwhelm. The first is called richness.
Richness.
It's this theory, or understanding really, that pretty much everything you've ever thought or seen or smelled or experienced, it's still in there, somewhere, stored in the physical structure of your brain.
Wow, so like an almost infinite storage capacity.
It's vast, truly vast. But just having it stored isn't the issue. The reason we feel so distracted ties into the second property, associative access.
Associative access. That sounds like how we retrieve memories.
Exactly. It's the pathway. And it's not like finding a file in a cabinet all neat and linear. It's associative.
Right.
Meaning memories get triggered by related things. Semantic links, categories, smells, a song playing, a photo. Think of a concept like a fire truck. That idea isn't isolated. It exists as a neural node, right? A cluster of neurons. And that node isn't just connected to ladder or siren. It's connected to the color red, the idea of firefighters, maybe a movie you saw like Ladder 49, or even the smell of smoke from a bonfire years ago.
So countless connections.
Infinite cues, potentially. Any one of those related concepts can trigger the fire truck node instantly.
Which is amazing for like quick thinking and solving problems.
Evolutionarily brilliant.
But in today's world.
It's an information traffic jam. Because everything's stored, that's the richness, and everything's linked, associative access.
Right.
The moment you try to focus on just one thing, say, writing an important email, boom, you open the floodgates. Related thoughts, worries, future plans, past memories, they all come rushing in because they're associated.
That makes so much sense, why it's hard to just concentrate.
And then you layer on top of that internal structure the massive increase in workload we talked about earlier.
Offloaded labor.
Yeah. The sources point out, the average person is trying to navigate millions of websites, maybe record videos, use complex apps, figure out their taxes, schedule everything, often on one little device.
We're processing this unprecedented amount of data that needs filtering, filing, just managing.
And crucially, we often try to manage it using really outdated ideas.
Like the computer desktop, with folders and files.
Exactly. That whole metaphor, it's basically from the 1950s Mad Men era, physical filing cabinets.
I never thought of it that way.
But think about it. That neat hierarchical system where everything has its perfect place, it just doesn't work for the sheer volume and the speed of information today.
So what happens instead?
Well, what often happens, both digitally and physically, is we end up with the equivalent of a junk drawer.
Huh. I definitely have a few of those.
We all do. These large, kind of unsorted containers where we just toss things because categorizing them feels like too much effort right now.
Or we don't even know how to categorize them.
Right. So we've basically replaced a potentially functional system with these massive digitized or physical holding patterns. It's organization debt.
Okay, so our brains store almost everything, and it's all hyper-connected, leading to easy distraction. And our organizational metaphors are kind of broken. How do we ever actually focus on anything?
Well, that brings us to how our attention system itself is structured. The sources talk about the sort of yin-yang dynamic, two primary brain states for attention.
Yin-yang.
Meaning they're fundamentally mutually exclusive. You can't really be in both at the same time, effectively anyway.
Okay, what are they?
The first one is probably what you think of as focus. It's called the central executive mode, or CEM.
Central executive. Sounds important.
It is. It's your stay-on-task network. This is what you use for deep work, writing a report, solving a complex problem, maybe intense coding, or even navigating tricky traffic.
Anything that requires sustained, kind of linear thought.
Exactly. High-level, demanding tasks. But here's the catch. It has a really strict capacity limit.
Oh. We always feel like we can juggle more than we actually can. What's the limit?
Generally, the research suggests the CEM can only actively attend to maybe 4 or 5 things maximum at any given time.
Only 4 or 5. That's surprisingly low.
It is. It's a hardwired biological limit. Trying to cram more in just creates friction, errors, performance drops off.
Okay, so that's the stay-on-task mode. What's the other side of the yin-yang?
That's the mind-wandering mode. It's also known as the default mode network, or DMN.
Mind-wandering. Sounds like daydreaming.
It can involve daydreaming, but it's much more than that. This is when your thoughts turn inward. You're thinking about your goals, your desires, relationships, feelings, planning for the future.
So like internal reflection.
Precisely. It's where your inner dialogue happens. And it's absolutely vital for creativity, for moral thinking, for making sense of things, long-term planning. It's not wasted time at all.
But the key is you can't be fully in the focused CEM and the reflective DMN simultaneously.
Right. They compete for neural resources. The brain has to allocate its energy.
So how does it choose or switch between them?
Good question. There are 2 other crucial parts to the system. So you have the 2 modes, CEM and DMN. Then you have the attentional filter and the attentional switch.
Okay, filter and switch.
The filter is like a primitive warning system. It's designed to let really important, potentially life-altering signals break through your focus.
Like a loud noise.
Yeah.
Or smelling smoke.
Exactly. Even if you're totally absorbed, those high-priority signals get through. The attentional switch is what actually directs the resources, shifting the brain's energy between the focused CEM and the inward-looking DMN.
And that switch. That sounds like where multitasking comes in, or tries to.
Bingo! When we think we're multitasking, texting while trying to read a report, while half listening to a call, we're not actually doing them all at once.
We're just switching really fast.
Really, really fast. The attentional switch is just flitting back and forth between those tasks.
Which sounds exhausting.
It is. And it comes with a significant cost, a neurobiological switching cost. Our brains just didn't evolve for this constant, rapid context shifting.
So every time the switch flips, it takes time and energy to reorient.
Yes. Time and metabolic energy.
Yeah.
Glucose. That's why you feel so drained after a day of fragmented attention, even if you didn't do heavy physical work.
And the sources had that startling stat about email.
Oh, right. That's a powerful one. It shows the cost isn't just in the act of switching, it's the potential for switching.
How so?
Research found that simply having an unread email sitting in your inbox, just knowing it's there while you're trying to focus on something else, it can reduce your effective IQ by as much as 10 points.
10 points. Just because it might need attention.
That psychological weight, that potential distraction, they call it infomania. You're paying that switching cost tax, even if you resist the urge to actually look at the email. The awareness drains resources.
Okay, so our focus system, the central executive mode, has a tiny capacity and is easily derailed by distractions, even potential ones. Maybe we shouldn't rely on it so much. What about just using our memory?
Well, that's another area where our intuitive understanding often clashes with the cognitive science. We tend to think of memory as like a video recorder.
Right, you just play it back.
Yeah, but it doesn't work like that. Memory retrieval isn't a simple replay. It's actually a process of rewriting.
Rewriting, every time.
Every time you recall a memory, you are essentially reconstructing it, which makes it incredibly vulnerable.
Vulnerable how?
Well, for one, it's easily confused. If you have lots of similar past experiences, when you try to pull up one specific memory, the brain often gets muddled. Competing, similar details rush in and interfere.
So it's not a clean retrieval.
Not at all. And because you're reconstructing it using your current knowledge, your current mood, the current context, you can inadvertently change the memory every single time you access it and then put it back into storage.
Seriously. We modify our own memories without realizing it.
Incrementally, over time, little changes, subtle shifts in emphasis, maybe incorporating details you heard from someone else.
And eventually,
these small changes can accumulate and lead to the creation of completely false memories. Vivid, detailed recollections of things that never actually happened or happened very differently.
That's unsettling, like that example with President Bush in 9/11.
Exactly. A really profound public example. He spoke with genuine conviction about seeing the first plane hit the North Tower on live TV before entering the classroom in Florida.
But the recording showed that wasn't possible, right? The footage wasn't aired live like that immediately.
Correct. The television archives confirmed it was impossible for him to have seen it that way at that time. His brain, dealing with an incredibly traumatic and public event, likely reconstructed the memory later, incorporating the images and narrative everyone else saw and talked about. It felt completely real to him, but it was a rewrite.
Wow. So the takeaway is, if something is important, relying on internal memory alone is risky.
Extremely risky. If you don't capture critical data externally right away, your brain is actively creating a potentially compromised version every single time you try to remember it. Memory isn't poor because of storage limits. That richness is there. It's poor because the retrieval mechanism is reconstructive and easily biased.
It's like trying to find one specific photo in a pile while someone keeps shuffling the pile and adding new photos.
That's a great analogy. And you can see this fragility even in simple lab tests, like with word lists. This demonstrates the primacy and recency effects.
Primacy and recency. I think I remember those. First and last things.
Exactly. If I give you a list of, say, 15 random words to remember, which ones are you most likely to recall?
The first one I heard? And maybe the last one.
Precisely. The very first word gets the benefit of primacy. Your brain had a moment to rehearse it before others crowded in who remember it best.
Right.
And the very last word gets the recency effect. It's still fresh in your short-term buffer. You remember it pretty well, though usually not quite as well as the first.
What about the words in the middle?
They tend to get lost. They suffer the most interference from the words before and after. In those list experiments, maybe 85% remember the first word, 70% remember the last, but the ones in the middle, much lower recall.
So our memory favors the edges, the beginning and the end.
It does, which again highlights how unreliable it is for capturing the full, accurate sequence of information internally.
All right, so memory is fallible, prone to rewriting. Attention is limited and easily distracted. How did humans ever manage to, survive and build complex societies? We must have some coping mechanisms built in.
Absolutely. And one of the most powerful fundamental ones is categorization.
Putting things into boxes, basically.
Sort of, but it's much deeper than that. The drive to categorize, to find order, it's ancient. It's wired deep into our prehistory.
Why? For survival.
Definitely. Think about early humans. You absolutely had to categorize, is this plant edible or poisonous? Is that animal a predator or prey? Is this person part of my tribe or a stranger?
Okay, makes sense. Life or death distinctions.
Right. So classification isn't just neatness, it's a massive evolutionary shortcut. It helps reduce mental effort, streamline the constant flow of information.
It saves brain energy.
Hugely. And this drive for order isn't just human. The sources mention it goes back millions of years. Even birds and rodents create clear boundaries around nests, organizing their little territories.
Huh. So it's a really basic cognitive drive.
Very basic. And it leads to something linguist Eleanor Roche identified called the basic level category.
Basic level.
It's the term we naturally gravitate towards in everyday language. It's usually the first word kids learn for something, or the first word you learn in a new language.
Give me an example.
We say chair. We don't usually say mahogany Queen Anne replica chair with yellow tufting unless we absolutely need that level of detail.
Right, just chair or car, not blue 2023 Toyota Camry LE.
Exactly. Chair, car, dog, tree. That's the basic level. Using it reflects cognitive economy.
Saving mental effort again.
Yes. It stops our brains from being flooded with every single possible specific descriptor every time we refer to an object.
But sometimes we do need that detail.
We do, and that's when we shift down to the subordinate level.
Like the mahogany Queen Anne replica chair.
Right. Experts use subordinate levels all the time. A furniture specialist needs those details. A botanist uses specific tree species names, not just tree. A car mechanic needs the make, model, and year.
So our expertise shapes the categories we use?
It refines them, but that basic level remains the brain's default, most efficient shortcut for just getting through the day.
Are these categories always strict? Like, is something either in the category or out?
Well, some are. Formal categories, like in math or law. A shape is either a triangle or it's not. A contract is either valid or it isn't. Those have hard boundaries.
Okay.
But most human categories, especially social or conceptual ones, have permeable, fuzzy boundaries.
Fuzzy boundaries? Like what?
Think about the category friend. Is someone you just met a friend? Maybe. What about a work colleague you only see at the office?
It depends, right?
Exactly. It depends on the context. You might invite that colleague to a casual office party. They're in the friend category for that purpose. But maybe not to your intimate family birthday dinner. They're outside the friend boundary for that. Inclusion is flexible.
So context matters a lot.
Hugely. And that leads to another type. Functional or situational categories. These are categories we create completely on the fly, based on a specific purpose or situation, not because the items are physically similar.
Like,
The classic example is things you'd grab if your house was on fire.
okay. Wallet, phone, maybe the dog, important papers, family photos.
Right. Those things have absolutely nothing in common physically or functionally. One's leather, one's electronic, one's furry, one's paper.
But the situation of the fire binds them instantly into a category for action.
Exactly. The purpose creates the category. We do this all the time without thinking. Things I need for the beach trip. Swimsuit, towel, sunscreen, book. Totally different items linked only by the destination and purpose.
So our brains are constantly building and dismantling these temporary categories to manage tasks. It's much more flexible than just relying on fixed lists in memory.
Far more flexible. It's a dynamic organizational system.
Okay, we categorize to save energy, but we still face countless decisions every day. Given our limited focus and easily distractible brains, how do we cope with the sheer volume of choices?
That is a central challenge. And one key strategy comes from the work of Nobel laureate Herbert Simon. He coined the term satisficing.
Satisficing, not optimizing.
Exactly. Optimizing is trying to find the absolute, theoretically best possible option. Satisficing is choosing the first option that meets your minimum criteria, the one that is good enough.
So settling.
It sounds like settling, but it's actually a highly adaptive strategy for conserving precious cognitive resources. We do it constantly.
Like how?
Well, think about cleaning your house. Do you clean until it's surgically sterile?
Definitely not.
Right. You clean until it's clean enough. That's satisficing. Or booking a flight, you search until you find a reasonable price and schedule. You don't necessarily spend hours trying to save an extra $5 on some obscure route.
You find something that works and you stop looking.
Precisely. And we need to do this because decision-making itself is incredibly taxing on the brain. It burns through neural resources.
Even small decisions.
Yes. And this is a really crucial point from the sources. Minor, seemingly meaningless decisions like, should I use a blue pen or a black pen? Which brand of cereal should I buy? They appear to consume almost as much mental energy as major, complex choices.
Seriously, choosing a pen takes as much brain power as deciding on a mortgage.
Maybe not quite that extreme, but the brain doesn't seem to differentiate well. It treats decision-making as a resource-heavy task, regardless of the stakes.
So there's like a daily budget for decisions.
You can think of it that way. A cognitive budget, maybe linked to glucose levels.
Yeah.
And once you hit your limit from making too many choices, even small ones,
What happens?
your higher level functions start to degrade. Impulse control is often the first casualty.
So that's why after a long day of meetings and choices, I might eat junk food or snap at someone.
It's a major factor. Decision fatigue leads to poor judgment, irritability, procrastination on subsequent, more important decisions. Your mental batteries are just drained.
Okay, so satisficing helps reduce the number of decisions. What else can we do?
The other huge strategy is externalization.
Writing things down.
Yes, but it's more fundamental than just making lists. It's about actively offloading the mental effort of trying not to forget something.
How does that work neurologically?
Remember the central executive mode, CEM, and the mind-wandering mode, DMN? They're always competing.
Right. Focus versus internal chatter.
If you have an unfinished task, a worry, something you need to remember bouncing around in your head, your DMN latches onto it. It keeps interrupting your CEM's attempts to focus. The DMN usually wins that battle for attention.
Because it feels urgent not to forget.
Exactly. But if you write it down, capture it in a system you trust, a notebook, an app, whatever you effectively tell your DMN, okay, this is handled, it's safe, you can let go.
You free up that mental bandwidth.
Precisely. David Allen, the productivity guru, calls this clearing the mind. Getting everything you consider unfinished out of your head and into a trusted external system is key to being present and focused. You stop tethering your attention to future to-dos.
Makes sense. What about all those little nagging tasks that pile up?
For those, the sources recommend the 5-minute rule.
If it takes 5 minutes or less, do it now.
Generally, yes. The idea is to prevent that small task from taking up more mental space in your worry list than it takes to actually complete it.
But wait, if I stop my important work every time a 5-minute task pops up, isn't that just constant interruption, more switching cost?
Ah, excellent point. And that's the crucial nuance. You shouldn't just randomly intersperse these tiny tasks throughout your deep, focused work. That would be counterproductive.
So what's the better way?
Designate specific blocks of time for them, batch them together, maybe set aside 30 minutes in the afternoon purely for knocking out all those quick emails, phone calls, small filings.
A 5-minute task batch.
Exactly. That way you handle them efficiently without constantly disrupting your central executive mode when it's engaged in something important. You minimize the switching cost while still clearing the decks. And this idea of externalizing the mental load, it goes way beyond just to-do lists. It's about physically shaping our environment to support our brains.
How so? Like being tidy.
Tidiness helps, but it's more about intentional design. Think about why we rarely lose our forks or spoons.
Because they go in the silverware drawer.
Right. We have the rule of the designated place, toothbrush holder, key, hook by the door. These aren't just about neatness, they're external memory systems.
So the environment itself remembers for us.
In a way, yes. These designated places are what the sources call cognitive affordances or even cognitive prosthetics.
Prosthetics. Like an artificial limb for the mind.
Kinda. The environment provides a physical structure that offloads the mental task of tracking those objects. You don't have to actively remember where your keys are if they always go on the hook.
But the system only works if you actually use it.
Right. That is the absolute foundation.
No.
You have to be almost compulsive about using the designated place consistently. If you only put your keys on the hook half the time, the system collapses. You can't trust it, so the mental load comes right back to you.
Okay, consistency is key. What about general visual clutter? Does that matter?
It does. A visually organized space, home, or office directly helps the brain. Less visual noise means less information your brain has to constantly filter out just to function.
So a calm environment helps calm the mind.
It reduces distraction, aids relaxation, and makes it easier to enter that focused central executive mode for work. You're essentially shifting memory functions, where is that bill I need to pay, from your limited internal RAM onto the reliable external hard drive of your organized desk or room.
But life isn't perfectly organized. What about stuff that doesn't fit neatly into a category? The junk drawer again.
Exactly. A good system has to allow for some flexibility for those fuzzy categories. The junk drawer is actually a perfect example of managed disorder.
Managed disorder.
Yeah. It holds pens, rubber bands, maybe some loose change, chopsticks, a tape measure, things without a clear home. But they do have a designated place, the junk drawer itself.
So it's a category for the uncategorizable.
Precisely. It acts as a buffer. Having that bit of planned disorganization actually makes the rest of the organization possible. It gives you freedom.
Okay, that makes sense for physical stuff.
Yeah.
What about the digital world? Organizing files on a computer.
The digital realm brings its own unique challenges. The sheer volume is one thing, but there are two really big hazards we often underestimate.
Which are?
The obvious one is disk failure. Hard drives, backups are essential.
Right.
But the more insidious one is file format obsolescence.
File format obsolescence. What's that?
It's when you have the file, the data is there, but the software or operating system needed to actually open and read that file no longer exists or doesn't run on your current computer.
Oh, wow. Like old word processing documents or photo formats?
Exactly. Or old financial records saved in outdated spreadsheet software, music files encoded in a format no one supports anymore. You upgrade your system, and suddenly, years of your digital life become inaccessible.
That sounds terrifying, actually. All that information just locked away.
It's a huge risk for long-term data resilience. Electrons seem permanent, but access to them depends entirely on compatible technology, which changes constantly.
So unlike paper files, where the main issue is finding them, digital files might just become unreadable.
Correct. The rules are different. With paper, the advice might be about folder size, keep them manageable, maybe 5 to 20 documents. With digital, you need to plan for catastrophic incompatibility.
How do you even plan for that?
It requires more rigorous thinking. Obviously, regular backups are non-negotiable, but the sources suggest going further for really critical old data. Consider creating a bootable disk image of an old computer that has the necessary software installed. Basically, a complete snapshot of the old system.
So you could, run the old computer virtually on your new one?
Potentially, yes. Or keep an old machine functional. And crucially, you need to check these archives periodically, say, every 3 to 6 months to make sure you can still access them. It's turning your backup into a true cognitive prosthetic that anticipates technological decay.
Okay, so we need external systems, designated places, backups for our backups. But none of that matters much if the internal system, our brain, isn't functioning well.
Absolutely fundamental.
Yeah.
You can have the most perfectly organized environment, but if your neurochemistry is off, you won't be able to use it effectively. And the absolute cornerstone of neurological health is sleep.
Sleep. Feels like something we're always short on.
We are. So much so that back in 2013, the CDC actually declared sleep deprivation a public health epidemic.
An epidemic. That sounds serious.
It is. The consequences are huge. While the ideal range for adults varies, maybe 6 to 10 hours, a huge number of people, especially working adults, consistently get less than 6.
And what does that do? Besides make you feel tired?
Oh, it impacts everything cognitive. It's a major factor in traffic accidents, industrial accidents. The sources even link it to critical errors like friendly fire incidents in the military. Memory suffers, judgment suffers, reaction time suffers.
We treat it like a luxury, something we can just catch up on later.
Which is a huge misconception. Sleep isn't optional downtime. It's when crucial brain maintenance and processing happens, especially for memory.
How does sleep affect memory?
It's when memory consolidation occurs. This is the process where your brain takes new experiences, new information from the day, and integrates it into your existing knowledge structures. It turns fragile short-term memories into durable long-term ones.
So learning actually happens while we sleep.
A critical part of it does, yes. And it happens in specific sleep stages. The really deep consolidation, structuring the information, happens mostly in the first couple of hours during slow wave sleep or NREM sleep.
Okay.
But then later in the sleep cycle, especially in the last 90 minutes or so before you naturally wake up, during REM sleep.
The dream stage.
Yes. That's when a lot of the emotional processing and integration of complex ideas happens. It's weaving the new information into the bigger picture.
So if you cut your sleep short,
Yeah.
like waking up early with an alarm,
You're likely sacrificing that crucial final REM stage. You miss out on that final integration. And the sources are really clear on this. You cannot effectively make up for lost sleep.
really, not even on the weekend.
You might feel a bit better subjectively, but the cognitive deficits, especially for learning and memory consolidation, can persist for days. Trying to learn complex material when sleep deprived means it just doesn't stick properly, even if you sleep more later. It's an investment you have to make consistently.
Wow. Okay, sleep is non-negotiable. What about when we are well rested and focused? That feeling of being in the zone.
Ah, yes, the flow state. That term comes from the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Flow, I've heard of that. It's like time disappears.
Exactly. It's that state of complete absorption in an activity. You have heightened awareness, intense focus, often a feeling of contentment or even euphoria. You lose track of time, self-consciousness fades away.
Is it just a feeling or is something specific happening in the brain?
Oh, it's very specific neurologically. It's a distinct state, different from just being busy or concentrating normally.
What changes?
Key brain regions involved in planning and skilled execution, like parts of the prefrontal cortex and the basal ganglia, become highly active. But what's really fascinating is what quiets down.
Like what?
The part of the prefrontal cortex associated with self-criticism, self-monitoring, that inner judge, It deactivates.
So you stop worrying about how you're doing.
Largely, yes. And critically, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, also becomes less active.
No fear.
Much less fear and anxiety. That's why people in flow, artists, athletes, surgeons, programmers, often describe feeling fearless, uninhibited, just completely immersed in the action itself. The brain regions that normally cause doubt or fear are temporarily offline.
That sounds amazing. How do you get into flow? Can anyone do it?
Anyone can, potentially, but there's a key condition. The challenge of the task has to be perfectly balanced with your current skill level.
Not too easy, not too hard.
Exactly. It has to be just right. If the task is too easy for your skills, your mind gets bored and wanders off into the default mode network.
Right, daydreaming.
If the task is too difficult, you become frustrated, anxious, overwhelmed. That activates the amygdala, generates stress hormones, and completely breaks the flow state.
So flow exists in that dynamic sweet spot where your abilities are fully engaged by a challenge that stretches you but doesn't break you.
That's the essence of it. It requires that precise calibration of challenge and skill.
We've talked a lot about organizing the individual mind and environment. But these principles must apply on a larger scale too, right? Like in businesses or other organizations.
Absolutely. The need for organization obviously scales up. The whole history of modern management is, in many ways, a story about figuring out how to organize large groups of people effectively.
It started with basic ideas like division of labor. Adam Smith.
Right. That was foundational. Breaking complex tasks into smaller, specialized ones. But early businesses often ran into a bottleneck. They were too dependent on the skills and memory of specific individuals.
Like a master craftsman. If they left, the business suffered.
Exactly. The knowledge wasn't institutionalized. The big shift came, the sources suggest, with the rise of large corporations like the American railroads in the 19th century. They had to standardize.
Because they were operating over huge distances with lots of people.
Precisely. They couldn't rely on just one person knowing how everything worked. So they invented things we take for granted now. Standardized accounting practices, written job descriptions, formal operating procedures, organizational charts.
So the knowledge moved from the individual head into the system itself.
Yes. The system became the repository of institutional memory. It allowed them to treat employees more like interchangeable parts in a machine. If someone wasn't performing, they could be replaced without crippling the entire operation because the procedures were documented.
Sounds a bit impersonal, but maybe necessary for scale.
It was a crucial step for scaling. Now, when we look at the structure itself, the organizational hierarchy, there's an interesting pattern.
What's that?
The number of management levels doesn't grow linearly with the number of employees. It's logarithmic.
Preening.
Doubling your workforce from, say, 10,000 to 20,000 people doesn't mean you double the number of management layers. Organizations rarely seem to need more than 9 or 10 levels, total, even massive global corporations.
Huh. So there's a limit to useful hierarchy.
Apparently so, which leads to a design principle. The minimum chain of command. You should always aim for the fewest hierarchical levels necessary to get the job done effectively. Keep it as flat as possible.
But pure hierarchy can be rigid, right? Especially in fast-changing situations.
Very rigid. And that's where modern thinking, especially in complex environments, emphasizes things like trust and decentralization. The U.S. Army provides a powerful example with its concept of mission command.
Mission command.
Yeah. Instead of giving subordinates highly detailed, step-by-step instructions for every situation, which is impossible in combat.
Right, things change too fast.
The commander gives their overall intent, the goal they want to achieve, and the resources available. Then, they trust the subordinate leaders on the ground to use their initiative and judgment to figure out how to achieve that intent based on the actual unfolding situation.
So it pushes decision-making down to the people closest to the action.
Exactly. It requires immense trust up and down the chain, but it recognizes that micromanagement completely fails in complex dynamic environments. The person on the spot usually has the best information.
That sounds much more adaptive.
It is. And this philosophy connects really deeply to a psychological concept called locus of control.
Locus of control, what does that mean?
It's about where you perceive control over your life's events resides. It's a spectrum.
Okay.
On one end, you have an internal locus of control. People with an internal locus tend to believe their successes and failures are primarily due to their own efforts, choices, and abilities.
Like, I succeeded because I worked hard.
Right. Or I failed because I didn't prepare enough. They feel they are the primary drivers of their outcomes.
And the other end.
That's an external locus of control. People here tend to attribute outcomes to external factors beyond their personal control. Luck, fate, chance, powerful others, circumstances.
I got lucky, or it failed because the situation was impossible, or my boss just doesn't like me.
Exactly, and research consistently shows that having a more internal locus of control is strongly linked to better outcomes. Higher life satisfaction, better health, greater persistence, higher work productivity.
So feeling like you have agency matters a lot.
Yeah.
How does this connect back to mission command?
Well, think about it. When an organization deliberately pushes initiative and decision-making authority down to lower levels, like the Army does,
It empowers people.
it empowers them, yes, and it actively shifts their perceived locus of control towards the internal. They feel more responsible for the outcomes because they are more responsible for the decisions. This fosters that sense of agency that correlates so strongly with positive results, both for the individual and the organization. Trust enables internal locus.
Okay, organizing ourselves, our environments, even our workplaces makes sense. But what about those really big, scary decisions, like major medical choices or huge financial risks? Those feel different.
They do feel different, and they are harder, primarily because they often involve high stakes, uncertainty, and strong emotions. Fear, anxiety, hope.
And we know high emotion messes with clear thinking.
Exactly. It degrades our decision-making sharpness right when we need it most. Often, these tough situations fall into what the sources categorize as. You simply need more information, but not just any information. The right kind of information, analyzed correctly.
Because our intuition isn't good with probabilities.
Our intuition is notoriously bad with probabilities. Our brains evolved to spot immediate patterns, cause and effect in the short term, not to calculate statistical likelihoods accurately.
We focus on things that happen together.
Yes, we're heavily biased towards noticing co-occurrences. If two things happen at the same time, we tend to assume they're linked. This leads to illusory correlations, seeing connections that aren't really there statistically.
Like superstitions.
Superstitions are a classic example, but it affects everyday reasoning too. To fight this bias, we need a tool, the fourfold table.
Fourfold table. Sounds mathematical.
It's basically just a simple 2x2 grid, but it forces you to consider all the possibilities, not just the ones that grab your attention.
How does it work? Let's use that echinacea example for colds.
Okay, so you take echinacea and you don't get a cold. That's a co-occurrence. Cell A took drug, no cold. Your brain highlights this, feels like proof.
Right. It worked.
But the fourfold table forces you to ask, what about the times you took echinacea and you did get a cold? Cell B took drug, got cold. And what about the times you didn't take echinacea and you did get a cold? Cell C, no drug, got cold. And crucially, the times you didn't take echinacea and you didn't get a cold anyway. Cell D, no drug, no cold.
Ah, you have to look at all four squares.
Exactly. Only by comparing the ratios across all four cells can you see if there's a real statistical effect or if you were just fooled by the memorable co-occurrence in cell A. Most alternative remedies fail this test rigorously.
That makes sense. We ignore the non-events. Another big error mentioned is base rate neglect.
Yes, this one is huge, especially in diagnosis and prediction. It's our tendency to completely ignore the underlying frequency, the base rate of something happening when we're given specific descriptive information, even if that information is weak.
Like the engineer at the party example.
Perfect example. You know only 10% of the people at the party are engineers. That's the base rate.
Okay, so random person has a 10% chance.
Right. But then I tell you, someone is wearing glasses, a tweed jacket, maybe seems a bit socially awkward. Suddenly, people jump to saying, oh, 50-50 chance they're an engineer. Or even higher.
Why do we do that? The base rate is still only 10%.
Because the specific, vivid description of the stereotype hijacks our intuition. We focus on whether the description fits the stereotype, and we completely forget how rare engineers actually are in that overall group. The vividness overrides the statistic.
And this happens in real-world decisions.
All the time. Think about medical tests. A test might be 95% accurate, but if the disease itself is very rare, low base rate, a positive result might still mean you're more likely not to have the disease than to have it. Doctors even fall prey to base rate neglect.
Wow. That's concerning. The sources used a really stark example with prostate cancer surgery.
Yes, the radical prostatectomy data is sobering. It highlights how these cognitive biases, combined with other factors, can lead to potentially harmful overtreatment.
Remind me of the numbers.
The data presented suggests that for every 48 men who undergo the surgery, statistically, only one man's life is actually extended beyond what it would have been without the surgery.
1 out of 48. What happens to the other 47?
They would have lived just as long anyway, either because the cancer was slow growing and wouldn't have been fatal, or for other reasons.
Okay, but what about the risks of the surgery itself?
That's the other side of the coin. The same data indicates that over 97% of men who have the surgery experience at least one significant, often permanent, side effect. Sexual dysfunction, urinary incontinence, bowel problems are common ones.
So a tiny chance of living longer versus a near certainty of significant side effects. Why do so many men choose the surgery?
Multiple factors. Physician bias plays a role. Surgeons are trained to intervene. But a huge psychological factor for the patient is regret aversion.
Fear of regretting not doing something.
Exactly. Amos Tversky identified this powerful bias. We're often more motivated to avoid the potential future regret of inaction. What if I didn't have the surgery and the cancer spread? Then the potential regret of action. What if I have the surgery and suffer terrible side effects unnecessarily?
Even if the statistics suggest inaction or less drastic action is the better bet.
Yes. The fear of the worst outcome, however unlikely, looms larger than the statistical reality. And how the options are framed matters immensely too. Talking about survival rates sounds better than talking about mortality rates, even if the underlying numbers are the same. This is prospect theory.
So for these big decisions, we need to actively fight our intuition, demand the real numbers presented neutrally, consider the base rates, maybe use that fourfold table, and be brutally honest about regret aversion.
That's the rational path. It's hard, especially when you're scared, but it's necessary for making truly informed choices.
This leads perfectly into the final challenge. We live in an age where information isn't scarce, it's overwhelming. Google gives us answers instantly.
Right. And that changes everything about what it means to be knowledgeable or educated. The core skill isn't finding information anymore. Anyone can find something instantly.
The skill is filtering, judging.
Exactly. Selection and verification. We're constantly bombarded with information, and a huge amount of it is, frankly, garbage. Misinformation, disinformation, low-quality analysis, accidental errors. It's a contaminated stream.
So we need a good filter. How do we build one for the digital world?
The sources suggest kind of a rapid critical thinking framework. They use the acronym HELLO as a quick checklist when you encounter new information online.
Okay, hello. What does it stand for?
H is for how. Plausible. Does the claim seem reasonable on its face? Does it violate basic laws of physics or common sense? Setting those boundary conditions we talked about helps here.
Right. Is it even in the realm of possibility?
E is for expertise. Who is the source? Do they have actual credentials, experience, or recognized knowledge in this specific area? Or is it just some random person's opinion?
Check their qualifications. Makes sense.
L is for links. Where does this information link to? What sources does it cite? Are they reputable? Do the links even work? A claim about medicine linking to the NIH or Mayo Clinic is very different from one linking to an obscure, biased blog.
Follow the evidence trail. Got it.
The second L is for location. Is the website or platform itself generally considered reputable? Is it known for rigorous fact-checking, like some news organizations strive for? Or is it known for spreading rumors? Has it been vetted by other reliable sources?
Consider the reputation of the venue.
And O is for objectivity. Does the information seem relatively neutral and balanced? Or is there a clear slant, a strong emotional appeal, an obvious financial or political agenda driving the content? Is it trying to inform you or persuade you?
Look for bias. Okay, hello. Plausibility, expertise, links, location, objectivity. That's a pretty solid quick filter.
It's a good starting point for developing online literacy, but we also need to be aware of our own internal biases that make us vulnerable.
Like what?
Well, there's the hostile media effect.
Hostile media.
Yeah, it's this fascinating finding where committed partisans on any side of an issue tend to perceive neutral news coverage as being biased against their side. Everyone thinks the media is unfairly favoring the opponent.
Even if the reporting is balanced.
Even then, our own strong beliefs filter how we interpret the information.
And then there's the technology itself, right? Search engines, social media.
Absolutely. They create the infamous filter bubble. The algorithms learn what you like, what you click on, and they feed you more of the same.
So you end up mostly seeing things that confirm your existing views.
Precisely. It insulates you from opposing viewpoints or challenging information, making your worldview seem more universally shared and correct than it actually is. It reinforces biases rather than questioning them.
That sounds dangerous for critical thinking.
It is, and there are more deliberate ways information can be manipulated, like selective windowing.
Selective windowing, what's that?
Think back to that stock market charlatan example.
Oh, right, sending different predictions to thousands of people.
And then only following up with the small group who happened to get the correct prediction that week.
Making them think the charlatan is a genius.
Exactly. They're only showing you the successes, the tiny window where they looked good, while hiding the vast majority of failures. It builds false trust based on radically incomplete data.
And this happens unintentionally, too.
All the time. Think about miracle cure testimonials or viral videos of amazing feats. You only see the positive outcome, the successful moment. You don't see the hundreds of failures, the context, the editing.
We have to constantly ask, what am I not seeing?
Yes. And always, always question correlation versus causation.
The pirates and global warming example.
It's a funny one, but it makes the point perfectly. Statistically, as the number of pirates declined over the centuries, global temperatures rose. There's a correlation.
But obviously, pirates weren't keeping the Earth cool.
Obviously. It's a spurious correlation. Two trends happening at the same time doesn't mean one caused the other. We see this flawed reasoning constantly in debates about social issues, economics, health. We have to separate correlation from actual causation.
So a final tool for dealing with the flood, especially with numbers.
Setting those boundary conditions we mentioned earlier, it's crucial for quick assessment.
Just figuring out the ballpark.
Yeah. You don't always need the exact number. You just need to quickly determine if a number you encounter is remotely plausible. What's the absolute lowest it could be? What's the absolute highest?
If a news report claims something costs trillions of dollars, but you know the entire national budget is only a few trillion, your boundary condition tells you something's fishy.
Exactly. Developing that quick sense of numerical reasonableness, is this number approximately okay or wildly off, is a vital skill for filtering the quantitative information that constantly bombards us. Hashtag outro.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this all up, this deep dive really brings home that having an organized mind today isn't about, memorizing more stuff.
Not at all. If anything, it's about relying less on internal memory and focus alone.
It's about building better systems, right? Both internal managing attention, understanding biases, and external organizing our spaces using tools, externalizing memory.
Precisely. It's about effective categorization, rigorous filtering, and consciously protecting that very limited, very valuable cognitive energy.
And it's not unnatural, right? You said the drive to organize is ancient?
Millions of years old. Our brains are fundamentally wired for order. We just need systems and strategies that match the complexity and volume of the modern world.
Which makes things like conscientiousness, that tendency towards discipline and organization, more important than ever.
The research strongly suggests so. Conscientiousness consistently predicts better life outcomes across decades. Health, longevity, career success, and the demands of modern life probably amplify its importance.
So you mentioned the brain's complexity earlier. That number about possible brain states.
Oh, yeah, it's mind-boggling. The sources state that the number of possible patterns of connection, the number of potential brain states each of us can have, is estimated to exceed the number of known elementary particles in the entire universe.
That is an almost inconceivable amount of processing power.
It really is, which leads to a final thought. If your brain is this incredibly powerful, complex tool, perhaps the most sophisticated information processor known, how effectively are you actually using that capacity? Are you letting the constant flood of the world organize you, constantly reacting, switching contexts, paying those neurological costs?
Or are you taking charge? Using that potential to actively organize the particles of your own world, your information, your time, your decisions, creating systems so you can direct that energy deliberately.
So maybe the question for you listening is, what's one small thing you could choose to satisfy on this week instead of optimizing? Or what's one nagging to-do you could externalize right now, get it out of your head and into a trusted system?
Just one small step to reclaim a little bit of that focus, that energy for what truly matters.
That might be the most organized thought of all.